we have defined 4 stages on how to turn a stranger into a loyal listener.
This is Podcast Perspectives, a show about the podcast industry and the people behind it. I'm your host, Jeff Umbro, founder and CEO of the Podglomerate. Today on the show, I am speaking with Odile Beniflah, head of US at Ausha. Ausha is a French podcast hosting platform founded in 2018. What makes Ausha stand out among podcast hosts is their promotional and marketing tools, which help creators grow their podcast. You can think of it as an all-in-one marketing suite attached to a hosting platform. Ausha is one of the largest podcast hosting platforms in France, where it was founded, and in the last few years has been making an effort to expand into new markets, including the United States, where today Odile oversees their growth. We'll spend some time speaking about Ausha's podcast services and platform, which include a lot of great marketing tools for their users, but I'm really excited to speak with Odile about brass tacks marketing. Specifically, I'm really excited to talk about Ausha's new PSO system, which is generally a search engine for audio platforms like Apple and Spotify. It helps you to optimize your content to appear higher in search results on these platforms. If what I'm saying doesn't make any sense, then this is the perfect episode for you. And let's get to it. How are you, Odile?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Jeff.
So you are the head of US at Ausha. Can you walk us through what is Ausha for somebody who hasn't heard of it?
So Ausha is a podcast marketing platform. It's like a hosting provider with all the tools to promote your show everywhere.
There are a lot of hosting companies out there. Ausha is actually very successful, especially in France and Europe, but also in the US when it comes to the number of shows that are hosted on the platform. However, something that I have noticed is that it's really difficult to get bigger enterprise publishers to migrate from some of those big enterprise platforms to other platforms. So what I have seen is that a lot of these, smaller or newer hosting platforms are actually building tools to allow existing shows that are hosted elsewhere to integrate with Ausha and the different tools that you guys are using on the platform. I guess my first question is do you see that happening as well? And then the follow-up to that is how do you all think about those kinds of integrations? Is the end goal still to get people to move their hosting platform to Ausha, if that makes sense?
Ausha started in 2018 in France. And within a year, in 2020, it became a leader in hosting and broadcasting for native podcasts in France. A year or two later, we did the first, we did a big online summit on podcast marketing, which was our biggest value add in France. And why was Ausha focusing on podcast marketing is because the founder noticed that in the space, there was just no marketing tool dedicated to podcasting. I joined the company in 2022 to launch in the US. And I noticed that nobody was talking about podcast marketing. So the strategy today is to really laser focus on, making the most innovative tools available out there on podcast marketing and enabling everyone to have access to our tool, meaning being able to integrate or to work on top of every hosting platform out there or every other tool.
I mean, that's really at the ethos of Podglomerate too. We started as an ad sales company / production company. And I just saw every time I talked to anybody, the question was, how do you grow a podcast? I have my own answer to that question, but what is your answer to that question? How do you grow a podcast?
I mean, we met as you were teaching this workshop on really podcast growth for beginners. And what is my answer on how to grow a podcast? You answered everything already. It's okay, first, what's your goal? What's your strategy? What do you want to do? Do you want to, drive business? Do you want to raise your brand awareness? Are you trying to keep your customers? And then who's your target audience? Who are you talking to, or who do you want to talk to? And then where are those people? It's funny because usually when I start teaching, any event on podcast marketing, I ask the very simple question. I'm okay, who in the room has their podcast on YouTube?
Yeah, it's not many.
Not many, right? And I'm like, what? This is the second biggest search engine in the world. And people are not on YouTube. I also ask the question, like, do you have a newsletter? Same. People are like, nobody. And, when I talk newsletter, I'm talking about like, do you let people know when you launch a new episode? Even though I have 20 years of experience in growth marketing, the podcast space is fairly recent to me. I joined the space less than 2 years ago. So I must say, I was shocked by the lack of expertise in the space. It took me a while to understand that I was really in a creator world, and the word marketing was just really scary for people.
You come at this from a really unique vantage point. You are a marketer.
Yeah.
Most podcast marketers are people who launched a show and then had to figure out how to grow that show. I do want to make that distinction because I think that podcasting is like a very young technology, like in context with everything else in the world. So that means like, our forms of measurement are often kind of early in the process. The way in which we gauge success is different from other industries. Some of the tools that Ausha provides to podcasters in other industries would be table stakes, would be very basic. It's like you have a podcast website, you have a newsletter, you publish updates on social media. Ausha lets you do that really easily and in a quick, fast manner. But I wanted to actually take one step back, and I want to like break this out by each of these categories and just talk about like why it's important for somebody to have a podcast website or a podcast newsletter, and like what you should consider when you're like building these things out. And we should look at it from a first principles idea of like marketing in general as opposed to podcast marketing. Let's start with websites. Like, why does somebody need a website for their podcast?
We always talk about funnel, right? Marketing funnel. Big word just to say, hey, if you do something, whether you are creating a show, you are building a music school, you are launching an incredible product, whatever, people need to be aware of it. So we have like this funnel where it's like, first people need to be aware of it. Then they need to be interested, take a look at it. Then they need to consider maybe buying it. You need to convert them, and then you need to keep your customer. So at Ausha, we have defined a podcast listener journey. Same thing. It's a same funnel. And we have defined 4 stages on how to turn a stranger into a loyal listener. And that's where I'm going to answer your question on the website. The first thing when you create a show is you need to be discovered. A website. Why a website? Because Google is the first search engine in the world. So you want people to find you when they are interested in a topic. And let's remember, people are still struggling with the word podcast. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Anybody who's interested in a topic, you want them to find you. So you should have a website dedicated to your podcast with the right keywords so that people can find you. And again, on Ausha, we make it a one-click thing. Based on your podcast show title and description, we immediately create an optimized website that is optimized for Google.
We work with a lot of folks who like maybe they're affiliated with a big media organization or a university or something, and they have tons of existing traffic on their websites of people who may already be interested in this stuff, and they can just use that to kind of create the funnel you're talking about to bring people back to the podcast. So it's really key to assume that like your show is answering the questions of people who are searching for this on the web and so on and so forth. So when people find your show, assuming you've made this great website that has all the keywords and everything, like what do you make sure is included on that website landing page?
It's mostly, using the right keywords. And this is something, by the way, that is not just in podcasting, in any marketing projects that I've ever had in my career. And I work with a lot of actually creators. People like to come up with very creative titles or descriptions. But at the end of the day, those are not the words that people are going to search. So you really have to make sure, I know sometimes it's really boring, especially for creators, that you just use plain English. Actually, this is a real example in New York. There is this running group called the Dashing Whippets. They are famous now after 10 years, but like if you're just going to talk about dashing whippets and how to motivate yourself to, run marathon, I mean, people are not going to find you. You have to use the right keywords. So that's what we call metadata. Super important. So, okay, this word, big word, metadata. What does it mean? Super easy. It's basically your show title and description, and then your episodes, titles, and description. That's it. I mean, just be careful of using words that, describe what you do and that people can find you with.
I'm so glad that you said that, because like I'm constantly talking to people about trying not to be too clever.
Right? I know.
Title and metadata is one piece. Like what else needs to be on a website? And I'm specifically thinking about like embed codes for the episodes, links to other places to listen.
So one of the other like 101 rules of marketing is to eliminate every single step, right? Each time you send people somewhere, you're losing 70% of them. So on your website, you should have an embedded player where people can just like taste your podcast. Like they can listen to it right away. You don't send them to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, somewhere. No. They can immediately listen to you, like have a sense. The other thing, when you actually send them to an episode, something we have on Ausha, which we have deep links, not just smart links, deep links. I'm sure you know what it is. Most of the people, when they send a link to an episode, it goes to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. And let's say you've talked about something incredible or with an incredible speaker 6 months ago. And or like a regular speaker like me. And then in 6 months, I'm like top of the news. The entire world talks about me. Maybe you want to promote this episode again, right? If you send people to, use the link of the episode and you can use directly on Apple Podcasts, but then you're losing all the people who are on the other listening platforms. On the website, the deep links go straight to the episode on the listening platform where the listener is actually listening to your podcast. So that's just like, this is really technical, but so powerful. Whoever ends up on your website, you want them to have immediately what they were looking for and give them a good experience so they stay with you.
Whenever we're talking with clients and they're building websites, whether it's with Ausha or other platforms or it's something bespoke, we always talk to them about making sure that they're including, the title, the metadata, links to find the show on other platforms. Have a very clear description and call to action for people to like know what the show is about and what to listen to. Build it so that they can then share it and like use it however they're intending to.
And something that I didn't mention, make your website also for your loyal listeners or your fans. So that means put your social media, the social media handles that matter to you, enable them to share, to follow you, to like subscribe to your newsletter, to send you sign up to a subscription on Patreon, whatever it is you want to do. Like make sure that you make it super easy for new listeners to stay up to date, and for people who fall in love with you to actually, start building a community, like feel like they like can share. So all those things should be on your website.
Okay, so we have the website, we have this main platform that people can go to search for and to like search about the show. What is the purpose of an email newsletter at that point? Doesn't everybody already know where to find the show?
Who wants to think about that? I mean, people don't know when you release episodes. You cannot assume that, oh yeah, Odile, she launches her podcast every Tuesday, once a month or every week. Like, no. And by the way, I may not want to listen to every week's episode. It depends on the topic, right? I mean, that's the basic when you publish a new episode. And then it depends on the goal, right? If you are doing a podcast to create a big community of activists or drive people to your business, or you may want to add a little bit of like news, or if you do special events, like you show up in a city and you want to meet your listeners in person. You can use the newsletter in so many ways. Yeah, like from the marketing, it's gold. It's gold and it's easy. I think people sometimes think newsletter has to be like this, complicated, like very rich content. This can be like 2 paragraphs and hello AI. Like for those of you who are not, who are shy with their writing, and I'm one of them, this is just like saving my life to have this, these tools available.
Whenever I get an email that is just like the link to the latest episode with like a couple sentences, as somebody who is very steeped in podcasting, who does check his queue every day, I get like not annoyed, but I become curious as to like why somebody is doing that or taking the time to do it. But then I've seen the data on a lot of these newsletters, and you are 100% correct. Like the vast majority of people do not listen the same way that you and I might. And also it builds you a bridge to your listeners. So like if you do have something to communicate beyond just a new episode, you have a framework to do it.
And, like even in marketing, traditional marketing, we're like, really? Do we have to do email marketing still in 2024? Well, yes. The data shows.
It's frankly the most powerful tool that most people have. When it comes to social media, how does Ausha help you to promote your show on social media?
You can create a social media campaign within Ausha for each new episode. So you can create a post automatically, again, for Instagram, for LinkedIn, and in the right format, animated, in the right way, so that, and you can schedule. You can say, okay, in this coming months, after publishing an episode, we're going to do 1 post a week, and you can just write everything. We generate again with AI a little like blurb, but you can customize it. You launch your campaign, but most importantly, we give you the data. So on Ausha, you see how many people have viewed your post on social media, how many people have clicked. And that way you don't waste your time for the next campaign. I mean, if, again, you can assume that all your listeners are on Instagram, and guess what? They're on LinkedIn. So maybe you're going to do something differently.
Do you have any learnings just from what you guys have done over the years with Ausha about like what is effective at driving like real engagement with social media?
When I talk to agencies in particular, or the media or studios, right? It's very much about the launch and the PR campaign. And for me, when I think about podcast marketing, it's the constant work in progress. Mm-hmm. Like you test a lot of different things. So for me, social media is one of the tools you have. Like you have all those distribution platforms, you have YouTube, you have website, like you mentioned before, you have all your social media channel, and you just look at the data, try this, try that. We make a column, right? Like these are all our growth tactics. This is the expected impact. This is the estimated effort. So of course you start with biggest expected impact and lowest effort or cost, the low-hanging fruits, and then you see what you get. And then you do as many tactics in parallels as you can. And yet you move from there. And then the other thing that I see, which to me is often a mistake, but not always, it's like when people think about marketing, they only think about paid marketing, like ads. And ads are great. I mean, I'm not saying, if you have money and you want to go fast. Yeah. But the problem with that is if you only do that, is that when you stop paying, then that's it. Versus what we call organic marketing. It's building long lasting relationships with your audience, your trust. And it takes a little bit of time to get momentum, but it's, to me, it fits the medium much more. It's authentic. It's a relationship. 2023 was a year of a huge year of learning for us. The biggest learning was that even though we clearly have a most incredible podcast marketing tools, nobody wants to switch or to have to, it's like independent podcasters have so many things to do. They're like, oh, please don't make me do this, even though it takes 2 seconds, but no, they don't want to do that. And they don't care enough about whose host they have. And then the marketing is overwhelming. So we're like, okay, we absolutely have to decouple the power of our marketing tools from our hosting platform, so we can make those tools available to the big networks and the big enterprise customers, because they ask for it, and there's nothing like this out there. So we made our latest innovation, the PSO, which is the like SEO for podcast apps. So the podcast search optimization. And we made that tool available independently from the Ausha hosting platform. And it's a game changer.
Can you explain what the PSO system is? Like, what does it do?
PSO, it's like SEO for podcast apps. So when you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, like a listening app, there's a study from the podcast host that show that the way people find podcasts, they don't really browse, they don't really browse like this. The way when you're on a podcast app, the way people find podcasts is by searching keywords in the podcast app search bar. So where your podcast ranked is actually super important. Apple Podcast serves you 100 results. For any keyword, you get 100 podcasts. You want to be in the top 3. You want to be in the top 10. You want to be in the top 20, but you really want to be in the top 3.
Because that's above the fold.
Exactly. Yeah. And what the PSO control panel shows you is where you rank, the position in which you rank on Spotify and on Apple Podcast search results for those keywords. So maybe you are position 20 on Spotify, position 3 on Apple Podcasts for the keyword marketing podcast. I don't know, podcast marketing.
I was just looking at this literally yesterday, by the way. So this show, Podcast Perspectives, ranks number 1 for Jeff Umbro, for the Podglomerate. But it's cool because, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the purpose of this is to give you the information that you need in order to make the tweaks on the platform and the metadata in order to rank higher or lower if needed in certain categories.
Exactly. And the thing that's what I was saying, like the thing that's really fun about it is that when you make tweaks, you have results the following day. It's like literally a 24-hour, turnaround on your visibility. So you can really test and play with, you make assumptions as usual on what you think listeners will look for to find your podcast, and you see where you rank, and you can optimize on those keywords. And when I say optimize, it's not rocket science. Optimize means you have to use those keywords. If those are the most important keywords for you, for your audience, your target audience, the audience you want for your podcast, if those are the keywords that you think, are the most important, then you have to use them in your episode titles, episode descriptions. And we also tell you how many times you use those keywords in your episode titles and descriptions. So we really tell you, like, look, you telling us that the listener journey or running marathon is really like how to run a marathon in less than 4 hours, whatever. If that's what really your podcast is about, you have used the word marathon only 3 times in your last 10 episodes. Something is wrong. So we give you the data to help you do that. We worked with the host of What Fresh Hell, which is a podcast about like funny moms talking about parenting, giving parenting tips, right? And it was so interesting. We talked to Amy, and she was like, so we asked her, it's like, what do you think, what do you think? What are the keywords according to for your podcast? And she said, parenting tips. And we looked and she was not even in the top 100, even though for her, that was like the most important keyword. And so, we worked with her on that and on the keywords, and we improved that. And then as we were really having a conversation, she said, what we really are about, we're just funny moms, and we managed to make her rank number 1 for this keyword.
Is there any way that you can get penalized from could I just go and publish 500 keywords in every episode at the end of the description?
Like SEO, if you're trying to trick your listeners, if you add keywords that have nothing to do with your podcast, okay, you make a keyword, call me daddy. People are they won't click on your episode when they find it. Let's say you rank high. They won't click. And so you are not going to rank higher because there are other criteria.
There is a couple pieces of literature out there that say that the only 3 metadata inputs that are indexed by every podcast search engine are show title, author tag, and episode title. Yeah, I believe you disagree with that.
I disagree. Yeah, description is very important. Show description and episode description. And we are soon going to be, we just launched an AI generated transcripts for all the show. And we are going to use that also for optimization. So definitely titles are not enough. Definitely.
Well, thank you so much, Odile, for joining us. This was awesome. I learned a lot, and we'll be sure to have you back soon.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you to Odile for joining us on the show today. You can find her on LinkedIn or on Twitter at Beniflah, OBENIFLAH. To learn more about Ausha, visit ausha.co. For more podcast-related news, info, and takes, you can follow me on Twitter at Jeff Umbro. Podcast Perspectives is a production of the Podglomerate. If you are looking for help producing, distributing, or monetizing your podcast, you can find us at thepodglomerate.com. Shoot us an email at listen@thepodglomerate.com or follow us on all social platforms at Podglomerate. This episode was produced by Chris Boniello and Henry Lavoie. And thank you to our marketing team, Joni Deutsch, Madison Richards, Morgan Swift, Annabella Penna, and Vanessa Ullman. And a special thanks to Dan Christo and Caitlin Boguki. Thanks for listening, and I will catch you next week.